Hi, I'm Rob McInnes, and I've been working in employment and disability services for probably 30 years, mostly trying to help companies to integrate people with disabilities into their workforces. My wife and I do consulting and training throughout North America, but we're headquartered here in Winnipeg. And we have a little project here called Ability Axis Employment Expo. We've made a lot of progress in the last 30, 40, 50 years. We're seeing more people participate in the workforce, but still the numbers of people with disabilities that are participating in the workforce is significantly lower than the general population. There are a number of things that contribute to that, and one of the main things is people's misunderstanding and preconceptions about what disability is all about. And I think a lot of it came out shortly after the First World War, when people returned from the war and were injured. And we thought, wow, those soldiers, they fought hard for us, they're injured, they can't really work in the workforce and shouldn't be expected to, so we'll give them all nice little pensions where they can live happily ever after. And we came up with a social welfare system which said that anybody with disability, we don't expect you to work, we'll just pay you some pensions and you can sit at home. The problem is we developed a mindset over decades where we believe people with disabilities could not effectively participate in the workforce. And that's essentially what we started railing against about 30 years ago or so. We need to rethink this. This doesn't make any sense, because throughout history, people with disabilities have participated in really meaningful ways in the workplace. And if we don't get them into the workplace, they're never going to get to realize the dreams for financial success, for having families, vacations, cars that the rest of us take for granted. It's those attitudes that are the key barrier that come into play in the education system, where expectations are not put on kids with disabilities the same they were for other kids. Once in the workplace, employers don't really readily believe that people with disabilities can effectively work for them. A lot of the agencies that provide support services to people with disabilities have low expectations for what those people can actually do and perform and have for careers in the workplace. So we really need to attack this. The attitudinal issues, the informational issues, broadly speaking, and that's where the progress can be made. Which brings us to the Ability Axis Employment Expo. This event, with a lot of support from a lot of the agencies and companies in the community, is to advance and celebrate the employment of people with disabilities in the workforce. And it is a celebration. We have a lot of fun, high level of enthusiasm, excitement. Last year I said, this was an event once a year where people with disabilities could come and spend the entire day with their heads held high and make no apologies.
I think that the Employment Expo is just an awesome event for lots of reasons, but I'll start with the personal reason. I really remember being afraid of disability, being so afraid that I didn't really understand it, that I wouldn't know how to relate to people with disabilities, and I had all the stereotypes going, you know, like, what if I don't know enough? Can I really work with someone who has a disability? And I'll never forget the year that I went to some training by Richard Pimentel, and he took us through some experiences that completely changed how I view disability, and realized that we don't need special training, you don't need lots of information. You need to be able to relate to people one-on-one as a person, trust them to inform you what you would need to know about them to work well with them, and let them be the expert about their own disability. That was really life-changing for me in how I viewed people with disabilities, and I felt like it was an incredible door that was open to me. So being part of the Ability Access Employment Expo, I feel like we are now inviting other community members who maybe walk in the door with a lot of that discomfort, the awkwardness, the fear, and I hope that by the end of the day, they're different because they've had the experience of just talking to real people. And, you know, if you're out there, you see that there are, you know, people using wheelchairs, people who are blind or deaf, or people with intellectual disabilities. And I think what people are noticing is, wow, they're all just, you know, students, they're job seekers, they're people with resumes and asking questions. I have to say that as a job developer, working to open doors and to help people get beyond their own fears and stereotypes with people with disabilities, that the most powerful tool for changing attitudes is exposure to real people. Nothing can touch it. Nothing is as powerful as exposure to real people. And among many other things that this day is, it is an incredible event of exposure, not just of people with disabilities to the employer community and to the agencies, but also for the job seekers with disabilities, to have exposure to employers and to agency folk and to other people with disabilities. I think we often think that if someone has a disability that they then don't have that same level of awkwardness or discomfort with disability, but that's not really true, because, you know, the young person with a learning disability may have never sat next to, at a cafe, someone who uses a wheelchair, or when they're in the workshops together, or they're there in the exhibits. I love this opportunity. It's about community making. You know, it's not as simple as just helping open a door for one individual with one employer. I mean, that's awesome that that happens, but this to me is like a community making event where amazing things can happen. People's minds are open, they have conversations they will never forget. That's what it's all about. One of my favorite definitions of employment development is that the people who are involved in helping people with disabilities in our community is that we're a bridge connecting people, not all, but many of whom are ready, willing, and wanting to work, and employers who don't believe it. And what I like about that definition is we're acknowledging that the people who've come here today to the expo, people with disabilities, we're not the missing piece in their puzzle. Everyone has exactly what they need to be who they are in the world, but they need an opportunity to do it. You know, they need that door opened, that they need that someone giving them a chance. And I think that an expo like this serves as a little bit of a bridge. You know, a lot of people with disabilities may not know where to go to be able to meet so many people in one afternoon. My hope is that they walk out with a little more confidence. They got some business cards in their pockets, they've shared some of their portfolios or their resumes, they've shaken hands with lots of people, they've introduced themselves to a lot of people. So one of my hopes is it's not really just about employment, but about a feeling of personal power and a feeling of confidence that they have a place and that they can relate to people in the larger community outside their schools or the agency. One of the pillars of my work in employment counseling and job development comes from the great Buckminster Fuller, who once said that everyone's a genius in the right context. And a day like this, my hope is that people through the workshops and through their conversations with exhibitors and employers and agencies have a little bit more glimpse into what they have to offer, some of their own gifts, and ideas from a multitude of people about the context in which they can really shine. That's the big challenge. And it's not just the challenge in the disability community, it's the challenge that all of us have as human beings, to find the place where we can really bring our finest gifts. And that's the work we're about, and I couldn't love it more, feel more privileged to be a part of something like this.